is time boxing if this is the first time somebody's hearing that technique?
There are a number of concepts that may be the first time for some people and not for others. Let's treat it all with a beginner's mind. Determining your chronotype is actually not hard, but most people haven't stopped to actually look at it. And you can figure it out in a week or two. All you need is a pad of paper and a pencil. Divide it up into 5 days, like morning, afternoon, evening, and just log on a very, 20,000 foot level. He said high performers in different disciplines, athletes and artists and inventors and scientists, they go into these concentrated states where they do the work that makes them famous. Once you've experienced working in a flow state, at the end you feel energized and you feel you've done your best work, you don't want to work any other way.
Steven, I'm curious, what is it that you've learned from the film and movie industry that you bring to your new business venture? Today on the show, we are going to talk about focus and flow state and how to work efficiently in an ever-growing digital world. To join us on the show, we have Steven Puri. Steven is one of the few people on earth who can say that they've worked at 2 motion picture studios, namely 20th Century Fox and DreamWorks Pictures. At 20th Century Fox, Steven served as a VP of Development and Production, where he developed and produced live action features including the Die Hard and Wolverine franchise. He later became Executive VP at DreamWorks Pictures, where he oversaw major films such as Star Trek 11, Transformers 1 and 2, Eagle Eye, and Transformers Prime, along many others. Earlier in his career, Steven produced the digital effects for Independence Day, which won the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects. And in addition to his successful film industry career, Steven built several tech companies and raised more than $20 million in venture capital. Steven is the founder and CEO of the Sukha company, whose mission is to help high performers find their focus, achieve more success while maintaining healthy boundaries between work and life. The Sukha is a focus app that brings together all the tools needed to enter a flow state and to create a healthy, productive work day. Today, we are going to talk about productivity, attention, distractions, a flow state, and so much more. You are also going to get a little sense for how amazing Steven is at storytelling and teaching us tools to improve the way we work while having a lot of fun in the process. So make sure that you listen in fully, and I hope you will enjoy today's episode as much as I've enjoyed recording it with Steven. This episode is brought to you by our very first show sponsor, Capturebee.io. One of the hardest parts of building a business and expanding your personal brand is keeping a steady flow of warm leads and connections. When I first started, chasing leads on LinkedIn was draining, distracting, and let's be honest, not really why I went into business in the first place. Now, just imagine never having to hunt for clients again. No cold outreach, no endless LinkedIn scrolling at 1 a.m., no awkward reels either. That's exactly what Capturebee does for you. It's a done-for-you outreach service that books warm leads straight into your calendar. And more than that, it can help you get featured on leading podcasts so that you can elevate your personal brand at the same time. You know that feeling, Steven, when it's the first time that you actually meet someone, but because you've been speaking to that person for a while, it feels
like you know them.
You're already meeting an old friend. Do you feel that feeling? Or is it just me?
We've had some good conversations, and this is the beginning. Who knows where it goes?
Exactly. Love it. Steven, let's dive straight in. What do you do, and who do you do it for?
So let me frame that with some context for those who are playing along at home or in their car. I'm one of the few people you'll meet who has been a executive at 2 major film studios and also raised over $20 million of venture and run 3 startups, 1 successful exit, 2 failures, right? And a lot of what I do now is I share lessons on the mental tips and techniques about how to be a high performer, but also to do it in a sustainable way. And that involves your flow states, involves understanding your brain energy, and also how to lead teams to great performance. So that's where we are now. And I run a company called the Sukha company, which is Sanskrit for happiness. It's a flow state app.
And I wonder, are you passionate about sustaining high performance because there's been a point in your life where you experienced?
Aren't we all looking to solve problems that we've had,
Always.
Right. I'm not looking to solve plumbing problems. I have none of those. So yes, I will tell you, there are some specific problems that I have, and a lot of what I've studied has been to solve them. So I found I had a problem with procrastination in the morning, where invariably I would need to get going on the important thing, but I would be returning emails or staying up on the news or things like that. I found that often I wrestled with burnout. There were issues around how long and how far could I do an unsustainable kind of work ethic, and was there a way to be more efficient and more effective? And these kind of things, as well as distraction, learning how to deal with distractions, are really what set me on this path.
Mm-hmm. Isn't it interesting, Steven, that with type A ambitious go-getters, there is this paradox, right, at the psychological level whereby we get shit done, right? There is no question about it.
Yeah.
We probably get shit done faster than the average.
Right. If you want something done, give it to a busy person, right?
That's right. That's right. However, we also are very, very good at procrastination and getting overwhelmed. And dare I say, almost sort of walking with a side of, I'm going to create that drama for myself. And because I know I have superior ability to do the impossible last minute, I'm kind of going to leave that really big piece of work till 1 a.m. because I know I can crush it and send it at 3, right? So there is that element of, because you know you're such a high achiever and you're such a high performer.
It's dangerous to know that.
Right,
Yes.
isn't it just?
It is. Okay, so there's actually something that, to pick up on what you said about that, you know what? I know that I have the ability to drop into this at the last minute and get it done at the quality level that I need it to, right? And that is, yes, that's a skill. That's awesome. You can do that. The price for that often is that's not repeatable. If you do that endlessly, that is where you get burned out. And you're like, I don't want to stay up until this hour just because I can. I don't want to crush everything this way. So it's interesting. This was pointed out to me by a colleague who said, not everyone believes in time boxing. Some people believe you just work, you just have priorities and you do your work, blah, blah, blah. But it is kind of magical the way when you do tell your brain, hey, I have an hour for this. I need to do this in 45 minutes, right? I have something to do after this, that you get it done. And people who often say, oh, I don't time box, when they say, well, I'll get it all done at the last minute, what in effect you're saying is, I'm going to time box it through procrastination. I will create a time box of this has to be done. This slide deck must be completed for the 9 a.m. meeting, so I'm doing it at the last minute. Imagine how your stress level and your burnout changes when you say, I know I can do it in an hour. What if I just shifted that a day earlier? And then you're not working up against that painful deadline.
So tell us more. What is time boxing if this is the first time somebody's hearing that technique?
There are a number of concepts that may be the first time for some people and not for others. Let's treat it all with a beginner's mind. So a lot of what I'm going to share is based on the work done by fantastic minds who have come before, the Cal Newports, the Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, and the Clears, and the Near Ailes, right? And Kotler. So time boxing is the weird phenomenon that when you do estimate the amount of time you need for something and you declare that, you finish it within that box. And when you don't, the Parkinson's law sort of states tasks will expand to fill the available time. So if you don't time box, it will take longer. And it's just been proven. It's this hashtag science. So I'll give you an example. When we were creating, the platform that I created, we made sure that every task you have to, by default, declare a time. And you can see a progress bar on that. And your smart assistant gives you check-ins like, hey, you're about halfway done with your time for whatever it is, the slide deck you're creating. And you can do that little check-in with yourself of like, am I about halfway done? How do I get myself on track to get that finished? It's just a really effective technique. So Again, free technique, you can do it, but time boxing, super big fan. What else? Where else shall we go?
So in concrete terms, Steven, tell us, how would I go about time boxing my day? So can you walk me through exactly how I maneuver that? Is that me sitting down and A, estimating, B, declaring, and therefore allocating that time real estate onto my diary by blocking it? So is time boxing a form of time blocking?
Yes, those are related concepts, and I'm glad you expanded this. So if time boxing is saying, I'm going to take this task and put it in a box, and by doing so, it will magically fit inside that box, right? There's a related concept, which is time blocking, which is really about looking at your calendar and saying, when do I have time to do something meaningful? I don't know how much you experience this or people playing at home experience this, but when your day as a leader has a series of interactive events, in-person meetings, Zoom meetings, things like that, right? Very often what you're left with is the scraps of time. Oh, I have 9 minutes between these two Zooms. I have 17 minutes for this, right? In that time, you're not going to do what Cal Newport would call deep work. You're not going to go and create the thing that actually moves your team forward. You're going to return some emails, do some shallow work, check your Slack, your team's messages, refresh your mind on what the next meeting's about because you've had 4 already today and you can't remember who is Charlene, why are we talking, So those meetings that break up your day will continue to sprawl and take away your ability to do something meaningful, which is why you may want to time block. And time blocking is saying, you know what, I actually do need time during the day to do something meaningful. Or it could be in the early morning or in the evening. And as you understand yourself, you'll get a sense of what that rhythm is in your particular sort of biorhythm, your brain energy. So once you declare that time, you say, hey, you know what? Like, for example, in my company, we don't set meetings 9 to 10 a.m. with each other. We don't Slack each other, period. It's sacred time. And it's the time when you are meant to actually do something meaningful because the rest of the day will be talking to customers, doing internal meetings, doing engineering reviews, things like that. So that's a really important thought. It actually leads us to another thought, which is chronotype. Should we move on to that?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. And before we do, though, may I ask, because I really love to know, concretely how we do things, right? I have a very how-to mind. So
Yes.
is the idea to sort of sandwich those two techniques? In other words, do I want to A, time box and B, time block? Is that how it
Yes.
works?
In your calendar, you're going to time block. You're going to say, I'm setting a meeting with myself. So meetings don't get set over that. And you treat it as sacred. You say, this is where I'm going to do meaningful deep work. You may need an hour, you may need 90 minutes, you need something, but it's not the 9 minutes between this Zoom and the next Zoom, right? So when you do that, and you can, as a leader, also encourage your team to do this. Because as a leader, you really want to be sitting in that staff meeting when someone says, yesterday I thought of, and then every head turns to them and go, that actually changes the trajectory of our company. Like, that's a fantastic idea. Those ideas don't come 9 minutes between Zooms. Those come because you've created a condition on your team of saying, I want you to be creating these kind of ideas. No company wins because of inbox 0, right? Okay. So to be very concrete, time blocking is setting a meeting in your calendar with yourself, encouraging your team to do that, and saying, let's treat this as sacred time to do the work that actually propels us past our competition, not just returning emails. And time boxing is saying, for this task, this is how long it should take. And as Parkinson's law states, it will take that time. It doesn't sprawl as much, right? Now, related to this, I'm going to tell you actually a story now, because as you remember, I've had a lot of experience in film. There is a famous screenwriter named Ron Bass. And this was my first-hand experience witnessing this, where he was notorious, infamous maybe, for not talking to his family in the morning. I'm not the dad who's going to be like, who wants pancakes? Who needs a ride to work? Or a ride to school? Sort of thing. He said, when I start talking to you in the morning, I lose the ability to hear my characters' voices. Now, this is the guy who's written the roles that Julia Roberts has said yes to, Tom Cruise, Dustin, like Rain Man, Best Friend's Wedding. Like, he's in the $2 million script club, right? And he was very aware of his chronotype. And chronotype is a concept. There are times of day that you're more adept at certain kinds of things. And Ron, he was an attorney turned screenwriter, was extremely conscious of time. And he said, that 5 to 9 a.m. in the morning, I don't even say hi to my wife. I don't say good morning to anyone because that is dialogue. He said, then later in the morning, I can be a good dad and be like, okay, how can da, da, da. And then he said, in the afternoon, that is interactive time. I'm very good doing studio notes, collaborations with other writers. He had a whole stable of writers who worked with him. And that was fantastic, observing how someone at that high level could do this year after year. It was because he was aware of his chronotype. Now, engineers, developers, very often, there's a culture around we worked late at night. There's sort of a celebration of we do our best coding in the midnight hours, right? It may or may not be true for you. When I was in SF, I hewed to that for a while until I realized the later at night I wrote code, I may have felt good about it, but it would have to be refactored later. I would look at it the next day and say, this was actually not my highest quality code that I was writing at 2 a.m., even though I felt like I was in flow. So I say all this to say, the third idea we're going to bring up, if we talk about time boxing, we talk about time blocking in your calendar, the third idea is be aware of your own rhythms of the day. When are you most clear? And when should you be doing Zooms? Because you're in your most charming part of the day.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I love that. How much do you think there is an impact between chronotype and whether or not you are indeed a true wolf, or you stay up late at night, or you are most productive? Like, fun story, but genuinely true. One of the reasons initially I was drawn to actually becoming an attorney at a big American law firm when I chose to work as an attorney in London was because I made a simple calculation. Well, I really love that industry and I wanted to work with an American firm, but I also thought, well, because we're mostly going to work on Eastern time zone while being in London, I really actually don't mind the 1 a.m.ers, the 2 a.m.ers, but I find my morning really painful. I don't like to front load my day with workload. I can do really good with night work. So I thought an American law firm, amazing. I hadn't quite calculated the fact that you're working around the clock. But that was kind of where my thinking was, right? Like, I always worked a lot through the night. And obviously, before I knew it, it turned into clinical insomnia after a few years of that, but that's another story.
Right. We'll come back to that another time.
So tell us more, right? Can it ever be true that folks who can resonate with perhaps my story could actually be more productive and efficient at night?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, this is something you can determine yourself. One can determine oneself very easily. All you need is a pad of paper and a pencil. Divide it up into 5 days, like morning, afternoon, evening, and just log on a very, 20,000 foot level what you did. This morning, I was creating content. This afternoon, I was doing interactive meetings, and jot down how you felt. When you look at that after 5 days or 10 days, you will get a very good sense of, oh, when I'm doing this in this time period, this is when I'm in my groove. And when I try to force this thing in that time period, it's either not my best work or it feels uncomfortable. And like you said, it's the mornings that are painful. So determining your chronotype is actually not hard, but most people haven't stopped to actually look at it. And you can figure it out in a week or two.
Mm-hmm. So then what do you do once you know your chronotype?
If you are the leader of your team or your organization, you hopefully have the ability to mold your schedule so that it does allow you to do your best in a sustainable way, right? And if you are a contributor, if you're part of a team where it's maybe you're not the one setting all of the meetings, is that you can do what you can to block those periods of time for the things that you need to do when. But let's be honest, there's some times that your boss is going to be like, we absolutely are going to do this at 9 a.m. tomorrow. And you're like, grin and bear it.
Of course. Speaking about bosses that ask us to do things at 1 a.m., can we talk? Never had one of those ever.
Yeah, shocking. Go on.
I might have become that boss somewhere along the way.
Wow, that mirror got held up.
No, I'll tell you what I do. No, I'll be honest here because I think being candid is the only way to go as a leader. I do some of my work late at night, sometimes, especially if I do work with, say, Sydney or LA, and I prevent burning out and prevent insomnia again by being very strategic on when I sleep. So I have US Eastern days. I have APAC days. So I block my week according to continents and time zones. I know that sounds like a lot of organizations, but it works really, really well for me. And I'm really well rested and well slept despite serving multiple time zones. But I'm conscious that my team is also in multiple time zones. So I don't love that they would get emails from me at 1 a.m. just because I'm working with Sydney that night or because I am in Sydney that night. So one quick habit that I think has made me quite a friendly leader is to schedule emails to the team. And therefore, I got into the discipline of scheduling emails, and not just the team, but especially clients. If I have an awareness of where in the world they are, there is a part of me that doesn't want them to know or perceive that I'm working at 1 a.m. A, they may not know where in the world I am, or B, it just may not be polished or professional in their perception. So I schedule things.
That is
And
very
how much?
thoughtful of you. Yeah, it's very thoughtful of you. I'll tell you a funny side note is, so an ex-girlfriend of mine, before Laura and I were married, she's a flight attendant for Air France. And it was very interesting between her and her friend group, understanding how they were hyper aware, how Air France management was hyper aware of the time zones that people are operating in. So they were assigned for long periods of time to regions so they could align themselves with, oh, I'm working the Asias this month. I'm working, this America's time zones. And that the fact that you can adjust to that so readily is impressive, because I saw a lot of Natalie and her friends struggle with when they're switching from doing Asian month to doing, South American month.
Well, I'm not saying that I always get it right, but I certainly always try.
I'm not saying I never get grumpy, but I am awake.
Tell me though, speaking of emails, the reason why we started to talk about that is I would say one of the biggest source of overwhelm for my clients is the sheer number of emails that lands into their mailbox. I think we have an email epidemic.
Yes.
500 emails to 1,000 a day is actually quite normal these days. I'm not being hyperbolic or
no, it's been
inflating
normalized.
numbers.
Yes.
Right. So what are we supposed to do about that? How do we not get overwhelmed? I think any normal human being who is a type A ambitious person probably finds it overwhelming because we like to get shit done. And B, how do we, declutter the mailbox? What is inbox zero? Is that realistic? Is it a pipe dream? Tell us more.
Yeah. Do you or anyone you know really practice inbox zero?
In my dream. In
Right,
my dreams,
exactly.
I do.
Right, you do. So I think what you're getting at on a deeper level, because you're not asking me, can I solve 500 emails a day? No one can. It's proliferated for a reason, but it's rather to say, how do I prioritize? How do I make sure the amount of time that I'm spending on emails is spent well? And it's not that the opportunity cost of that is I didn't do something more meaningful for the business, the business outcomes we need, the success of this business, right? Because ultimately, those 500 emails are not all important. And there are, by the way, and I'm not here to shill for AI tools, but there are some great AI tools that help you prioritize, that get a sense of like, hey, of these 500, here are the 19 that absolutely need an intelligent response. Here are ones that don't need any response. And here are ones that I can draft something for you and we can kind of make this easier. So I very much encourage that. However, I'll tell you this, the thing that I speak about frequently and that helps a lot of people, both leaders and ICs, is the concept of when you do have the time to work and you're not doing shallow work, as Cal Newport would say.
If you're enjoying this show so far, I just have a very quick favor to ask you. Could you go ahead and click the follow button or the subscribe button? It would mean so much to me and it would really help to grow our show so that we can enhance the production, we can bring you the best possible guests, and we can have the most amazing conversations. So if you haven't already done this, please take a moment today to go ahead and click the follow button or the subscribe button. Thank you so much. And now let's go back to this amazing conversation.
There are ways to have sustainable high productivity. And one of these is related to flow states. And I don't know, I know part of the audience listening is like, I'm a flow master, I'm super into this. Part of it is my day is so chaotic. How could I actually make that work? And what is flow state exactly? Because I've heard of it, but I've never done it, right? So is it fair we spend 30 seconds talking about what is a flow state and why it's important?
I think we should spend more time on that.
Okay, we're going to do 60 seconds. This is going to be crazy. So Hungarian-American psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, he had a thesis. He said high performers in different disciplines, athletes and artists and inventors and scientists, they go into these concentrated states where they do the work that makes them famous, the work that moves the world. And they all talk about these states in similar ways. He was like, what's up with that? What's going on here, right? So like Prometheus, he wanted to go up to Mount Olympus, steal some fire from Hephaestus and bring it down to the rest of us and go, here, I got fire for you guys, right? So at the end of his research, he wrote a book called Flow. It is the seminal work on this. It is the reason why we call it a flow state. And I think this is so great. He said, I chose this word because it was the most beautiful metaphor for what I found, which is we are all on the river paddling ourselves forward. But if you align your boat with the current, it magnifies your efforts. You go further and faster. That is what these people have figured out how to do, and to do it consistently. So he acknowledges many people call it different things. These performers don't all call it flow. Michael Jordan, who's a great basketball player, called it being in the zone. And a lot of athletes talk about being in the zone, right? He had a quote about, when I'm in the zone, it's just me and the ball. Picasso talks about it in his own way, where he's like, I was up all night. I lost track of time. I don't think I ate or went to the bathroom, but Guernica, what do you think? Do you like it? You know, and that sense of being lost in the work. And to round off this bit of our conversation about what is a flow state, Mihaly lays out the characteristics of being in a flow state. He said, you lose track of time. You're not staring at the clock. You're doing something you find to be meaningful, and you're deeply in it to the point where you block distractions. You're not thinking about your TikTok, your email, your WhatsApp, your thing you need to check, right? He said, it's interesting that it's work that when you're done returns you energy, a feeling of control in your day, as opposed to work that depletes you. And he said, it really helps with sustainable high productivity, right? So I did not know what this was the first time I experienced it. I was on a flight from here, Austin, to San Francisco to meet with my team. And I wanted to mock up an idea I had for a feature that I was going to show them the next day. Got on the flight. Alaska runs that nonstop on that route. Captain's like, the Wi-Fi's out. Sorry, everyone, right? 15 minutes after takeoff, I'm working away and we're descending. And I thought an engine has fallen off. Something horrible has happened. They don't want to tell us why. We're making some emergency landing in Dallas or something, right? 2 hours and 40 minutes had gone by. I had no idea. We were landing in San Francisco. And my designs were done. I couldn't tell you if the drink cart had come by. I couldn't tell you my seatmate's name. But I felt really good about the designs I'd done. And I felt prepared for the next day. That meeting was not, let me get to the hotel, grab a sandwich, run up to the hotel room, try and finish this for the morning. I was done. And that I later, in the course of discovering this, is what Mihaly was talking about. And a lot of people have stood on his shoulders, the Kotlers and the Newports, to say, here is more research we've done on this. How can music help you be in that state? How can you set up your brain to be in that state? Also how to time block, to bring us back to the beginning of the episode. Mihaly wrote, and research has shown, it takes you 15 to 23 minutes to drop in. You don't just snap your fingers and say, I'm in flow, right? For the world to fall away and you to do that great work in a quick, fast way, that is something that takes a little time. And if you're interrupted, it takes you another 15 to 23 to get back into that state. So it's very interesting to see how you start to really respect time blocking once you understand, I can achieve my highest in the shortest amount of time if I treat this meeting with myself as sacred. That was a long speech. And we're back.
I love it. I love it. I love that you said that. And I'll tell you the first time I've experienced flow. And I remember it so well because what I don't know if it is the first time, but it's the first conscious time, right?
Right. So you
So
really noted like something magical happened.
that's right. I'm sure there would have been a prior instance, but that's the first adult moment, right?
Mhm.
Where I experienced flow at a professional level. And it's actually many, many, many years ago. And it's interesting because back then it wasn't my job title, but it's the feeling that actually really led me to choose my second career. So let me explain. It will
Really?
make
Hold
more sense.
on.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's pretty cool. So I was actually quite young. Oh gosh, I say that now. Yes.
Younger.
Once upon a time.
Right. When the dinosaurs roamed the earth and we were all playing. Yes, understood. Go on. Go on.
A few less wrinkles. I was a law student and I was part of a national debate team.
Mhm.
And I was proudly representing my university, and we were the winning team. And so we had the privilege and honor of debating in the French Assembly, which was very, very exciting. So, National French Assembly, here I am. And it was just, super exciting. And I go on stage and the whole purpose is being interrupted, right? So it's not just a speech. You're like having
Yeah.
this debate. So your opponent are trying to derail you and to put you down. And it's all about intellect and being sharp and being fast. And I remember just being in that moment and being on stage and speaking and thinking fast and finding those great answers. And I just thought about that moment
It
and
was
time
thrilling, wasn't it?
elapsed. Right, it was. And my
Yes.
parents and my sister were there, but they were blurred and there was no nerves. It was just kind of a feeling of floating about.
Hmm.
And it was living in a dream. There was also a sense of slow motion, but speed at the same time. I know
Yeah.
that sounds really weird to describe, but the voice were also slightly distorted. And I felt like I was almost in a bubble where
Hmm.
I was totally zoned in, a bit like the sensation of having, sort of tunnel vision. And I remember getting off and almost feeling like I just got high, like I was on drugs. I promise I was sober. And I just thought this has brought me the most amount of joy, that
Hmm.
kick, that adrenaline, that feeling I've never experienced before. And that's the moment I realized that I wanted to be one day a speaker, professional speaker.
That's amazing.
And it was beautiful. And then the disenchanting part. So if you'll indulge me on the story, I felt, oh, this is great because I study law to be an attorney and I'm going to have all those
Hmm.
opportunities to be at court and to do this again and again. And then I became an attorney. And as much as I loved it, there was not a lot of public speaking and a grand audience. And, my sort of pipe dream of being on stage and speaking and having an audience every day, multiple times a day, turned into 1 a.m. doing drafting and documents that nobody will really read behind a computer screen in a dark, dark room. And I thought, oh, I don't know if that's what I
What
signed up
happened?
for. So anyway, fast forward a few years and I quit my career in law and I became a professional keynote speaker.
Mhm.
And here we are, full cycle. And I have to tell you, Steven, I genuinely experience flow every single time I speak on stage. Every single time.
It's an amazing thing. I'll tell you something. So the platform that I built, the website, is a flow state platform. Our month over month paid retention is 94%, which is ridiculously high. And the reason for that is what you just said. Once you've experienced working in a flow state, at the end you feel energized and you feel you've done your best work, you don't want to work any other way. But it's
That's right.
hard. You have to decide you want to try something. It's like a baby going from crawling everywhere to standing up and walking around. You have to want to make that progress from crawling.
And I would love to get your expertise on that.
Mm-hmm.
But at least speaking from my experience, the first time I experienced flow was accidental. In other words, it's not like I curated a process whereby I
Right.
can take credit for it, right? So
Agreed.
I would say that was a happy accident, right? It just happened to be the first time that I got close to doing that thing that I was meant to do, if you want to talk about it this way. However, to replicate that process and to know with absolute certainty that I'm going to get to that level, now I have a system in place. So I
What is your
don't lose
system?
Oh, it's going to sound really disciplinary and it's going to not be very sexy. So I'm afraid I may disappoint here, but it's discipline based. So I need to have slept, like non-negotiable.
Yes.
I cannot feel flow on stage if I am a wreck. Like if
Yeah.
I haven't, so I need my physiology is fundamental. So I need to be well slept. I'm going to sound like I'm a plant, but I need to be well slept. I need to be well
Well fed.
hydrated,
Well
well
hydrated.
fed, well lit. No, but
Little
genuinely,
sunlight.
like
Right.
I need to. So you'll find me before a keynote, literally just refusing to go backstage and actually going front of the hotel or the venue or the conference center
Mm-hmm.
just to get any kind of light that I can. I'll even be seen taking off my shoes to just feel that sort of connection and feel grounded.
Grounded.
I'll
Yeah.
have tons of water and I will swirl water just to have my mouth hydrated.
Mm-hmm.
So just to not have that kind of nervous talk feeling of a dry mouth. And I'll be sure that my insulin levels are in check. So I'm not going to spike hard. I'm not going to have heavy carbs just before the event. I'm not going to go deep into intermittent fasting either, but I'm going to be very, very careful with
Mm-hmm.
my caffeine intake. I don't want to be jittery because then it's going to make me anxious. So I want to
Yes.
time release my caffeine. So a little coffee, but 3 hours before stage and followed by loads of hydration, some magnesium, sunlight,
Mm-hmm.
little bit of protein, healthy fat, that's good for my brain, limited carbs before the event, carb loading after the event. I know that sounds like a lot, but that's sort of my success sequence.
But to have that amount of self-awareness, I have great respect for that. I hope people listening who are wrestling with how do I make better use of my time, my brain energy, even more importantly, they're inspired by what you just said, because I work with thousands of people, who are in our platform, and very few of them are that considered. And usually the problems that come, the people come to our platform, they are around the ideas of, I don't feel like I have enough time in the day. I keep telling myself the lie at the end of the day, oh, well, I'm going to get up early tomorrow to finish today's work before I start tomorrow's work. And that just dominoes every day through the week. Or I'll come back after dinner and then keep working tonight. Like all these things that are basically symptoms of you're not working efficiently. Very few people actually work very efficiently. And that, I have a question for you. When you're speaking and you're in flow, that is a very specific kind of activity, sort of feeling. When you are writing, suppose you're preparing for either a keynote or some sort of speaking engagement, and you have to do solo knowledge work. You need to think for an hour or two about how this is going to go. Do you listen to music?
Oh, I love that you asked me that question. So I've tested and tried, but I've noticed things. So my jam, I'm going to sound like a dinosaur, but I'm a classical and opera person,
Yeah.
so that's my thing. But as much as I love opera, opera distracts me. So opera does not mean that I'm conductive to flow. In other words, I will get too caught up in the lyrics
Yes.
that I will get distracted, even if it's a language I don't fully understand. So even if it's Italian, I
Right.
don't speak Italian, but I get drawn to the
Your
lyrics.
brain is triggered by the voice.
Correct. Yeah. However, if I play classic music, so jazz, again, I find it a little distracting, but if it's classical music, Four Seasons, great example, it's kind of my flow state booster. I will get absorbed but not distracted. So that to me is flow activating. That works really, really well.
Okay.
But so what I do with music is sort of something to put me in the flow. Then I get a treat. So if I've achieved the work that I was set out to do, then I have a reward song, and that song will be an opera song.
Right. Or Britney Spears, no judgment.
Of course. I mean, Miley Cyrus, my favorite,
Okay. So what you, there are a number of things.
I did actually go to a concert to see her. So embarrassingly.
My wife and our friends went to her residency in Las Vegas. So no judgment here.
Okay, well, I have to say she was great. She was great.
Somewhere there is a work bitch hat somewhere in our house. I don't know where, but it's here. However,
I had my face. I had my face. What can I say?
right. Actually, so did my wife. So, so there are a couple of things in what you said that are very interesting, and I'm going to tell you part of my process of learning, because in creating a website to help people get into flow states, obviously there's a ton of research on how music is one of the components, right? It helps people fall in faster, more reliably, and stay in. So most of the research shows that there's a sweet spot for most people, which is 60 to 90 beats per minute. Music that is, as you said, non-vocal, ambient, rhythmic music, certain key signatures more than others. So I happen to have a bunch of friends who are film composers with time on their hands, right? So I asked them, like, hey, within these boundaries, could you write 1,000 hours of music, right? That's helping people get in flow. We throw this up into the platform, people start using it, right? Interesting learning that I had. A friend who does the sound for LucasArts for the like Star Wars games, right? He called me up and said, listen, I just got back from Nepal. It was my son's high school graduation present. He wanted to go to Nepal. While we were in Kathmandu, one day it poured rain, this lush, beautiful rain. It was so hard we didn't go out. And I had some of my recording equipment. I recorded it. Do you want this recording of 2 hours of rain in the Himalayas? And I thought, why not? So we quietly made it a playlist in the middle of all the lo-fi playlist and the, up tempo and down tempo sort of things, right? And we called it Himalayan Dream Rain and just quietly put it there. It became the third most popular playlist in Sukha. So I reached out because, as the owner of the platform, I can see who's listening to it. So I DM'd some people, hey, do you mind if I ask you, like, why would you listen to rain? Like, we have all this scientifically designed flow music. Tell me more. And the number of people who said, essentially, it was about an association they had. People who said, oh, when I was young, I was in Georgia and it rained when I'd be doing homework. Oh, I was at my grandmother's house where it always rained. We would be at our lake house. It always rained. And it was interesting how it evoked for them. There was a mental trigger around, oh, it's raining out. This is when I'm inside focusing on my work. And even 20, 30 years later, that was helping writers write and writing designers design. So we then experimented because, of course, that was fascinating to me. Go, oh, wow, there's not a lot of research that points to this. So we took streams in Japan. There's a famous lake in Canada called Emerald Lake that has these indigenous birds, right? We threw up a bunch of playlists we called naturescapes right in the middle of all the music. Some of them hit, some did not. But it inspired a woman to reach out and say, hey, listen, before the pandemic, I was single. I would go write in coffee shops. I have a child now, as you and I are both about to have children, right? It's like, I have a child now. I can't be part of coffee shop culture, but the sound of the coffee cups and the barista and the murmur of people, it evokes in me, oh, I'm going to be writing a great thing, my next book or whatever it was. So we found someone who recorded a coffee shop in Vienna, Austria. I don't know why they did this, but they'd recorded like the walla, the background noise of this, and we threw it up there. And again, incredibly popular. So I say this because the amount of self-knowledge you demonstrated about like a plant, I need this kind of grounding, this kind of light, this kind of water, this kind of sleep. Like, as people develop this sense of, I really want to make better use of the hours of my day, so I have more time. No matter how wealthy you are, you can't buy more time. You can buy more anything, but not time, right? So as people become sensitive to that, hopefully closer to where you are, is they do start to pay attention to, you know what? Maybe it's not the music that gets me in. Maybe it is not the Four Seasons, but maybe it is the sound of rain or the sound of a coffee shop or something that helps you to drop in, because ultimately that's what you want to do. You want to develop those little cues to your mind to say, I have an hour. I want to do 2 hours of work in this 1 hour.
I just love that you said that. And there is science around what you said as well.
That is
Scientists
right.
call it brown noise, if I'm correct.
We have brown noise. We have pink noise.
Pink noise?
Yes. Did you look at our platform? Yeah. All these things have come because members have said, actually, what works for me is blank. And we're like, we will happily give you a playlist of blank.
Yeah.
And it's good. Okay, I'm going to tell you a funny story. And this, for those playing at home who like film, this is a film story, but it is about another mental trick. and this is free. You don't need anything to do this, which is when I transitioned, I was going to the University of Southern California in LA, right? When I was transitioning out of school, I happened to be very lucky. My life is a series of very lucky events, and I would like to believe I worked hard to make something of them. But I happened to be in LA. I had been trained as a software engineer, but I also had a lot of friends in film. So when film became digital, I had a huge career open up because that Venn diagram of can speak engineer, can speak creative, had very few people at the intersection. I was one of them. So my career took off. I did movies with James Cameron. I did Braveheart with Mel. I did Brian De Palma's Carlito's Way. Did all these movies, right? So I met Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin, who were setting up Independence Day, getting ready to do this. Apparently, they had written their past couple movies at this villa, this beautiful marble villa in the hills of Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. So Roland turns to his assistant and says, we're ready to go write. Joey, go rent the villa. Joey comes back. The villa's rented. Roland called his attorney, John Deemer, who's a fantastic entertainment attorney, and said, John, buy the villa. And by Monday, Roland owned a $5 million villa in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. I do not know where the renters went, but I'm sure they were paid nicely to find another villa. The guys went down there, and 6 weeks later, they came back with the script that became the third highest grossing movie in film history. And I asked Dean about this. I was like, why was this so important for you guys to work there? And he said, there's a room where in the morning, the light comes in over the pool. In that room, we don't think about our agents. We don't think about actors' contracts. We don't think about studio budgets. We just think about what is the movie we'd want to see. And we write that. So that's why it's worth it to us. And I was like, fascinating. Now, it's not to say that you have to have a $5 million villa to do your work. Later, when I was at DreamWorks, I was executive vice president for Kurtzman Orsi at DreamWorks. And Alex Kurtzman and Bob Orsi, if you don't know, they wrote Transformers 1 and 2, Star Trek 11, Eagle Eye, Mission Impossible 3, Zorro, The Island, like tons of big summer movies. They're in the $1 Million Club, right? And great guys. When they got into their crunch time, we have to go deliver Transformers 2 to Steven in, not me, Steven, Big Steven, in 3 weeks. We were on the little Amblin compound, Steven's southwestern Adobe area of the Universal Studios lot. Across Lancashire, there is a Universal Hilton. I'm just going to say, it is not a glamorous property. It's where you go with your 3 kids the night before you go to Universal Studios and take them on the rides and you get out, okay? They would have their assistant rent a room there for several weeks. And I was like, they're pulling down $2 million a script. They could easily go anywhere in the world. They could go to Bali and write. Why? And what I realized for them is they had met back in college. And going there with Kurtzman on the edge of the bed on his laptop and Bob at the desk on his laptop, that evoked for them those college days when they had to prove that they were great writers. And it helped their brains fall into, oh yeah, watch this. We're going to write something great. So why do I say this is you can use this same technique if you're working remotely, if you're working from wherever. If you simply say, I'm not going to take my laptop and work from anywhere in the house, anywhere in the office. There's going to be a place where I train my mind to say, when I sit here, this is what I do. It can be as simple as this is when I review briefs. It can be, this is when I make slide decks. But you're going to find that if you do that consistently, your brain falls in much more quickly when you associate the space with the work.
I love that you said that. And I think environment is key for flow. So I'll tell you something. I would love for you to share more sort of flow triggers. But there is one thing that really helps me cultivate flow state when I need that boost, So you asked me about when I need to write that next keynote. So I don't get the fuel of people because when you're on stage you get that fuel, right? You get the energy. But when I have to be back in the hotel room and that write the next week or next month's one or think about it, one thing that really fuels flow for me is beauty. And beauty in the large artistic creative sense of the term. So one thing that always surprises my client or even people that know me is they say, how do you make time or find time to go to all those galleries and operas and ballets when you're on a work trip? And the thing is, it's not that I make time, is I construct it around that time. So it's part of my success equation. I know that if I've seen Giselle the night before, or I've seen Swan Lake, or I've gone to a gallery like I just did coming back from Madrid. I literally gazed at paintings from paintings that I loved for 3 hours straight before coming back to write a keynote that I knew was essential. That is food for my creativity. I feel and experience awe, which is so important to me. I marvel at something, and in that moment, I don't feel that I need to produce. I can absorb. And because I can absorb, I can then produce, right? So it's that really beautiful dance between being nourished and being able to produce. And I had to learn this, Stephen. And the reason I say that is when I didn't do that is when I burnt out, right? I wouldn't say that I'm a creative in the sense of, I don't have a talent. Like I'm not a musician, I'm not an artist, but I nourish my intellectual achievements with creative endeavors. And that's always been the case. But when I stopped going to the opera, when I stopped going to the ballet, when I stopped going to the galleries, is when I burnt out. And it's not because I didn't have time, it's because I stopped prioritizing the thing that lead me to feed my best
Yeah, that
work.
actually nourishes you. Yeah,
Right.
that's true. I hope those listening have an awareness of what nourishes them, because you're right. You do need that. And the fact that you can understand that the process of going to the ballet or the opera or to the gallery is actually a part of your work process. It is how you have the energy, the nourishment to do your work, which could seem strange to some people because it's like, well, you're not in an office or you're not sitting at a desk, right? And the thing I think is interesting is we're moving in some areas of work, not Jamie Dimon at JP Morgan Chase, but it's other areas. We're moving to a definition of work that is, it is measured by the effect of what you did, not where or when you did it. And that's, I think, a really powerful thing when you consider, how to hire and how to organize your team, is you actually really don't care. It's like my father's generation of, if you're not underneath these same fluorescent lights this number of hours a day with us, you're not working. And it's becoming more, if you do or say or think of the thing today that changes the business, it really doesn't matter how you came to it. It matters that the business wins.
I've never had a groundbreaking idea in a fluorescent light setting. No, but get me right. Like I've done really good work. So let's.
I'm not saying you haven't, but I'm laughing because I worked at IBM. I know what it's like.
I've of course I've produced great work, but I'm talking about ideation. That
Yeah.
sort of novel moment. I'll tell you like a little story. The day that I decided that I would launch this podcast, that was about
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago, was after climbing a mountain, like quite literally climbing a
Wow.
mountain in South Africa. And it was hard. Like it's not one of those like nice climb. Like it was tough. At least for me,
Wow.
it was really challenging. And it was a hard day, and you would have thought that I would come home knackered. And I was physically quite tired. Like I got even a bit scared at some point. It was really out of my comfort zone. But then I saw the horizon and I got to the peak, and I experienced awe, nature kind of awe. And I was amazed and I was proud and I felt confident. I went down, I was tired. And then I had this like sort of waves of idea about the next thing that I could do for the business. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember I was so excited. I couldn't really fall asleep, but not in an insomnia type of way. I can't wait. And I just started to like jot down all the ideas, and like my poor husband was trying to sleep, and I was like, we're launching a podcast. And he was like, yes, you know that tomorrow is going to happen. And I was like, no, but please, and this and that. And he was like, oh, here we go. And that's how the podcast idea was born, by climbing a mountain, literally.
Wow. See that?
No.
Well, I hope this has been inspirational for those listening, those who are leading teams and those who are on teams.
Take them up a mountain.
I'm just saying, this is the thing is, you often working in film, there is a great division between the creatives and the technical, right? Working in technology, there's a great division between the creatives and the technical. And what I think is so interesting is it's often seen as the creatives are the ones that are bringing the new ideas, that are releasing something new into the world. And the more I've worked with designers and writers and engineers and craftspeople, in both industries, the more I've come to believe that all of us have something great inside. And the question of our lifetime is, are you going to get it out or not? And if you can figure out what that is and know how to release it, like the way you light up when you talk about that experience of keynoting, of being in flow and knowing that people are, whether it's 100 or 10,000 people are going to leave that auditorium changed by the experience of being together and listening to you. Like, you've found what that is for you. And leaders can do that and ICs can do that. It's just, you have to understand, even like when I was a producer, people often ask me, like, what do you think about, artists? And I said, well, I view myself as an artist of people. And you can come to an understanding of what your greatness is. It's not just, if you're not Picasso painting something, it's not great. Companies have changed the world. So I hope, those listening here, because I know you have a very strong leader viewership and listenership of people who are knowledge workers and leaders. And they have a great ability to change the world. So I hope this has been inspirational.
Steven, I'm curious, what is it that you've learned from the film and movie industry that you bring to your new business venture?
I'll tell you, with Sukha, my impetus to create this was I saw too many people distracted to actually do the great thing of which they're capable. And I think it's criminal. I think that, and this is me in a soapbox, which I acknowledge, but I think that how my children's generation will look at social media and our generation is hopefully how I look at my father's generation in smoking, where I recognize how many of his friends died of lung cancer, died of, the thing, he has emphysema. But when you talk to him, he's like, the movie stars were doing it and the tobacco companies were publishing studies on how healthy tobacco was. And now I don't have any friend who smokes. I mean, it's ridiculous. And I hope my children look at that and they go, how did your generation do anything of value? You
don't spend enough time in France, maybe, Steven. we do still smoke.
I know, but if you look statistically, it's dying off with young people.
Yeah.
There's some pockets culturally where people smoke, and they're old people, and there's some very poor people. But I don't know anyone who smokes anymore. And it is just an interesting thought of when my son's generation looks back at us and says, so how did you do great things when you were viewing Kim Kardashian's ads for underwear and you viewed that as content? That would get 15 million likes as she's modeling underwear that she's selling to you, and you guys view that as entertainment. I think it would be so ridiculous that I look at, my father's generation dying of lung cancer. I'm like, how did you do this to yourself? I hope, because unless we conquer some of these things, we're not going to do the great things which we're capable.
So what is your flow boosting, productivity enhancing routine? What are your fundamentals?
Well,
or can we borrow a leaf out of your book?
I'll tell you straight up, when I'm in Sukha, when I sit down to work, I hit play in my website. I listen very frequently to a playlist called Ambient Atmosphere, which I find is the right kind of lo-fi vibe for me, where again, I'm not singing along with it. It has long tracks that repeat and lull me in. I love prioritizing. And I think you've talked about this in a previous episode where, if you really think you're going to do more than 3 things today, you're just fooling yourself. You don't have a prioritization if you don't know these are the most important things to do. So it really helps me with that, where I have to declare what I'm going to do in time box. And I have a smart assistant, and I'll be blunt. I am as guilty as anyone about being distracted. My phone, I'll check my WhatsApps to see, friends in France or friends abroad, what they're sending to me. And we built a little way in the system in the Sukha where when I pick up my phone, my smart assistant says, Steven, do you really need to be on your phone right now? And sometimes it's all that I need, that little nudge, like a friend sitting next to me, where I'm like, you know what? I can look at my phone later because I'd rather be done, earlier in the day. Did I ever say why I named the thing Sukha? No, I didn't tell you this, right? So
No.
it's a funny story. Laura and I met in yoga. My wife, I married
Oh
the
my God.
girl.
I
Yeah,
met my husband outside a yoga studio.
there you
That's so
go.
funny.
It's a great place, right? So we were at the
Okay, wait,
Equinox.
wait,
And
wait, 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 wait.
what?
I want the
Go, go.
story. Let's exchange story. How exactly did you meet? I love yoga related couple stories.
Oh yeah, we have a daily yoga practice for 10 years. So I'd moved to New York. I was living in Battery Park, which is the southern tip of Manhattan by the financial district. And I had learned yoga largely obviously in LA. And in LA, it's very competitive. Like everyone in class is an actor, a model, a trainer, like they're very good. So when I made it to the front row in LA, I was pretty good at yoga. Coming to Wall Street and doing yoga at the Equinox there, people there have day jobs. They are bankers and financiers and hedgies and, iBankers. So I was traditionally the best in class. And this one girl, this very pretty blonde girl, sometimes would be in class and she was very good. And one day she was on my left. And when we left class, I just said to her, whenever you practice near me in this particular Tuesday class, I always watch my alignment more. Like I try harder because you like raise the bar in the room. And she laughed at me and she said, oh, I was a D1 athlete in college. And I was like, I totally get that. She's like, she's an executive at American Express. And she said, now this is my outlet to like try and keep, my body going as I'm, handling, I think she's handling the Delta and the Starwood cards at the time. And so we just started talking. And for months we just talked from the locker, till we hit the locker room. And then one night we went to dinner. That was it. How about you?
I love it. Oh goodness, I was fresh out of heartbreaking divorce proceedings,
Oh,
and I called one of my girlfriend who was in the yogic world,
mhm.
and I said, honey, I need like a change of scenery. I literally just quit my career. I just got a divorce. Like I need the most remote place, and also as much as I, adore men at large, at that particular phase of my life after a divorce, I was like, and ideally a place with perhaps the least amount of men. And she was like, honey, I live on this island called Nusa Lembogan. I've been living here for 2 years teaching yoga. I've been desperately single. There is literally like no suitable, eligible men on the island. Just come to see me. We'll take care of you. You'll do yoga. You do your YTT. You do your 500 hours. You reset, you reboot, you relax,
Yeah,
you become a
yeah.
yoga teacher. That's what you do. What do you do when you quit your career as an attorney? You become a yoga
Of
teacher, right?
course. Yeah, yeah. It's a very
As you do.
classical path.
I know. I When I turned up, people were like, "Oh, Eat, Pray, Love," and I didn't get the reference. I had not read the book. I had not watched the movie. I
Right.
genuinely, well, I was too
No
busy being
plan
an
to go to
attorney.
Italy.
So, and I was like, I don't get the reference. And well, now I get the reference.
Yeah.
But so I arrive on this remote island of Bali, and not just that, I get there at a time of a volcanic eruption. I am not making that up, right? So I get to this island. It's already relatively remote, but then there is a volcanic eruption. So there
Yep.
is even less people. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm blessed by the Balinese lords. And I'm like remote. And all I'm doing is drinking coconut water and, going to watch the sunset and doing yoga. And I was doing my yoga certification at this beautiful studio. And then one night I walk towards my yoga to go and teach a class. And there is this most beautiful sunset. I'm talking amber, pink hues, like
Right. Because all the ash in the air. Yeah.
movies, right? Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
And I look to my left, and there is this gorgeous man, like jaw dropping, can't take my eyes off of him. And I just see this piercing blue eyes, and I think, oh, my heart sinks. And I just can't think about anything else. So I just thought I have 1 second to do something about it, because if I keep walking, I'm never going to see him
Ooh,
again.
what'd you
So
do?
I flipped my hair. I looked at the sunset and I thought, I'm just going to take a pose and I'm just going to pretend that I'm looking at the sunset, kind of looking at him, trying to get his attention. And he was just, now that I know him, he was just meditating, gazing at the sunset, like being in his bubble. And his mate is like, dude, there is a girl checking you out. Do something. And that's how I met my husband.
That's amazing. This was right before the pandemic, right?
Yeah, and you know what's funny is he just came out of the yoga studio, so he was totally zoned out or zoned in because he just had a class where I was teaching. So he was not at my class; he was with the previous teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So he was in bliss, and yeah, that's how we met.
Okay, you're going to laugh at how perfect this story is to complement yours. So Laura and I have a daily yoga practice. We met in yoga, right? So when we got married, where did we go for our honeymoon? To Bali.
Oh my goodness, I love it.
Let's go to yoga on the beach and hang out alone, right? So we're flying there, and I was talking to Laura, and I said, you know what? We have a working version of my platform. We need a real name for it. And I've been thinking of every bad name possible, like distraction blocker, flow state app, 12. It was just terrible, right? So I said, maybe the universe will speak to me, because for 10 days, everyone in the office knows not to bug me. No one's going to ask me to approve a purchase order, do anything, right? I'm on honeymoon. So Laura said, I hope that happens for you. And I said, I want something like Amazon is not called like bookstore online, like Nike is not called like shoe store. What's an interesting name that captures this? So when we get there, I said to her, something that might help me is if I seed my unconscious by, do you mind if I talk to a couple of these early members, these beta testers, and just say, what feature do you love? 10 minutes. So Laura said, I'm going to the pool. I'll meet you at dinner, right? So I go through a note in the group chat saying, who has 10 minutes to chat? Speak to 3 people and ask that question. Just, what's your favorite feature? Do you love the music? Do you love the smart assistant? We help you stay off your phone, your websites. What is it, right? The third guy, I was wrapping up, and I'm very respectful of people's time. I said, listen, we've been talking for 8 minutes. I want to thank you. I really appreciate everything you told me. And he cut me off. And he said, Steven, you asked the wrong questions. And I was like, okay, guy that I don't know that well. What? I'll take the bait. What was the right question? And he said, you should have asked me why I pay you. And I said, we charge a nominal fee, like less than $1 a day. It's not a big fee, but okay. So why do you pay me? He said, so the past year or two, I find I have 2 kinds of days. At 3 o'clock, I can be playing with my kids. They're 2 and 4 right now. Or at 6 o'clock, I can be down to myself, making plans to work more after dinner. And why didn't I get stuff done? I was busy all day. And he said, I realized the difference is, did I hit play in your website before I started work that morning? So I pay you because my kids are not going to be 2 and 4 forever. And I was like, okay, you won that round. That was a way better question than what I was asking. So I go to dinner with Laura, right? It's our first night on honeymoon. I was like, I spoke to this guy who is more articulate about what I'm doing than I am. And this is what he said, right? She's like, that's really good. We're going to bed, brushing our little teeth, wearing our spa robes on our honeymoon. And Laura looks at me. She goes, in yoga, we hear all these Sanskrit concepts, the prana, your life force, and dharma and karma. He described to you Sukha, that feeling of being in control, that feeling of you're in your lane doing the thing you're meant to do, and you can do it with ease. That's what he wants from your platform. He doesn't want any of the features. He wants that feeling of being in control of his day and playing with his kids. She's like, that's what you should call your company. And I checked on my phone from Bali, and that website, the Sukha company, was available for $14, and I bought it right there. We went to bed.
Oh, goosebumps. I love that story. I'm never going to forget your company's name after that story, and I don't think any of our listeners will.
It's people ask me all the time what a strange name it is, and yeah, that was it. And it's yoga, it's Bali, it's a guy named Chris. Yeah.
Oh, we do have a few things in common then.
I'm saying, when I bump into you on the mat in Bali, you'll be like, Steven, here you are. I'm like, yes, we love Bali.
Oh, we continue to cherish going. That's one of our
Hmm.
things that we do. We
Yeah,
tend to summer there, or well, at least the opposite of summer. So when it's winter in Europe,
right.
we go
Yeah.
there. This year we've chosen Thailand, so we
Huh?
love Asia, and just it kind of reminds us of where we met and where our love story began. So,
That is beautiful. We spent Christmas and New Year's in Thailand this year.
oh, you did? Whereabouts?
Yes. So we were on Koh Samui. We went up to Pai. Have you been to Pai in the
Uh,
hills?
I didn't. I went to Copenhagen and I caught dinghy, so that was
Yes.
interesting.
Yes. Oh boy. Yeah. So we've traveled a bunch around Hua Hin and yeah, Copenhagen. Yeah. Laura loves it.
Nice.
It was her fourth trip, my third.
Oh, very good. Well, Stephen, I think we shall definitely do a double date somewhere around
That
the
would be
world. I
amazing.
think we will all get on very well, and we'll do some yoga together, all of us.
How could we not? I know.
You know what happened that pissed me off so much? We got told off by a teacher for holding hands at Shavasana, which fair enough, I can see
Oh,
why you shouldn't.
no, I do that all the time.
I
I do that
know,
all the
but she
time.
was like, stay in your space, stay in your space. This
You know
is not
what?
the time for
You should
TLC.
say to
I thought,
her, you
oh.
should say to her, yoga is from the Proto-Indo-European word to yoke, to join. So you should be very
Exactly.
happy that this practice joined us.
I
See
just
what she says to that.
I'll try that.
Right, exactly. Do you know why it's called yoga? Let me tell you why it's called yoga. Okay. Dharma
I
Vishnu,
just
whatever your name is.
blocked her classes. I was so pissed off. It's just that feeling we love to go together as a couple. And we're not this annoying couple that's doing TLC the whole class, but at
Yeah.
Shavasana, like I love reaching out for his hand and knowing that he's gonna delicately hold mine. And
Yeah.
that's that thing that we do. And
100%.
it's just a few seconds. And I just love it because for me it has so much meaning because I know that our love story started with yoga and she just ruined that moment. And I thought, didn't
No,
like
no,
that.
no, no. That's up to you. She can't ruin the moment. You can decide how you feel about it. But I'll tell you this:
Well,
Laura and I hold hands in Shavasana all the time, and our yoga instructor in LA, who is one of my buddies from William Morris, he used to be an agent at William Morris when I was an executive. He was the officiant at our wedding in Cabo. Our yoga instructor married us,
nice. I like that.
and we held hands.
Love it. Love it. We're going to be those two annoying couples that hold hands
Fantastic.
at
Bring it.
Shavasana. So we'll do that. And then the teacher will just lose it because now she'll see two couples doing that.
Right? It's like, what do I do with
You
these
and
people?
Laura will go at the front. We'll go at the back.
Sold.
Oh, Stephen, I just want to ask you, is there one thing that you really wanted to cover today that we didn't cover because we just got too excited talking about yoga and sunsets?
Oh my goodness. This if anyone out there has listened this far, I hope there are a number of things that picked up. And I wouldn't add one more to this episode. We could do another episode. There's so much more we could talk about, especially about creativity. But I hope this has been helpful and actionable for the people listening.
Wonderful. How would you like our listener to connect to your world?
Oh, there are two very easy things. If there's anything that I've said that someone has a question about, who's Cal Newport? What should I read on Flow? How can my team benefit from this? My email address is very public. It is Steven with a V at thesukha, THESUKHA.co. You're welcome to email me. It will not be a long response, but I do respond, as Charlene can attest, in 24 hours to every email. And then if someone wants to try out Flow States, they want to try, our website, it's free for 7 days at thesukha, THESUKHA.co. And I hope it is a tool to help you or your team do something great.
Wonderful. We'll put the link in the show notes. Stephen, wonderful. I had a great time and I can't wait to see you somewhere around the world. Meet Laura and the little one.
Yes. See you in yoga.
If you want to be featured on industry's leading podcasts, you know you need to grow your LinkedIn presence and improve your personal brand, but have zero time to do it yourself. Capture B is your answer. I've been using it myself and it's been just a game changer. So today I want to share it with you. If you're ready to grow your business and personal brand without burning out in the process, go to captureb.io. Thank you for spending your time with me today and listening to this episode. Remember to subscribe so that you can receive weekly updates. And if today's message resonated with you, please remember to share it with a friend, a colleague, or a loved one who could really benefit from this episode.